We have a tenth of a second to make a first impression on somebody new. That was the result of a study conducted by a couple of psychologists from Princeton University. Now, it was a study that was conducted years ago, but if you Google first impressions, you will see that whilst the number of seconds may vary, it literally is in the blink of an eye that we make a judgment about somebody new. Today in this video, I'm asking you really to challenge that and to challenge sometimes those snap decisions that we make about somebody or something, because quite often we miss what the message is, we miss what's right in front of our nose. So there's a story I would like to share with you, and it was a story shared by Melody Beattie, and she's an American author, and she was conducting a class, and one of the attendees in the class was also writing a column about attending the class. Now, Melody Beattie asked her to provide her a copy of the column, but to include every judgment that she made attending that session. So the lady did this, and it went something along the lines of: Melody Beattie arrived late, and the lady wasn't impressed by this. She said she hobbled to the front of the room, no makeup on, carrying lots of papers and wearing sweatpants that she looked like she'd peed herself. And she really said that Melody Beattie got to the front of the room, and she was not that apologetic for the way she had entered the room. She basically apologised for being late, but she said, I apologise, but my family sucked the soul out of me this weekend. So it's quite amusing. What the lady said in the column is that whilst all those judgments were there initially, Melody Beattie sat down and started to speak, and she said that as soon as Melody Beattie started to speak, she knew this was somebody that she wanted to listen to, that there was a deep presence about this woman, that she knew most people only are able to speak from this place of deep wisdom after suffering from years of pain. And she said it was an amazing couple of days. What she learned in those couple of days, mostly that, it's not really about, it's about being who you are without worrying how you look and how you come across to other people, and that she'll take that with her for life, for whatever it is that she's doing. Here was a woman who, come hell or high water, was going to show up and share her message with people in that audience, for whoever was willing and open to receive that gift, that message. And she said it was really, we found out later in the book why Melody Beattie had shown up in that manner and the reasons behind it. But as I say, here you've got somebody who's just not going to let anything stand in her way, events in her life, the family sucking the soul out of her, from showing up and doing her work and delivering it to those who are prepared to listen. So it really challenges, and then it's going back to what I was saying about those first impressions that you can make about someone. And we can be very, very quick to make snap judgments and miss something that's actually quite beautiful in front of you. I had a personal experience a number of years ago where I was delivering training courses, and they were fairly delivered in a fairly typical way, structured, knew what the content was going to be, the key messages, some of the stories that would be shared, and they were very successful. They were well received, much better than I expected actually, but I personally didn't enjoy delivering them. I felt that I had used far too much energy in getting that across, to the point where I was exhausted after it. I certainly didn't enjoy the delivery. So I decided, in my wisdom, that the next training session I was going to deliver, I would do impromptu. Now, this might have been slightly extreme, going from one extreme to the other. As you can imagine, it wasn't as well received. And I left that day after the end of it thinking, what the hell did I decide to do that for? Thinking it was the most stupid thing I'd ever done. I think I cried all night long. But a couple of things happened on the back of that. And now, a number of years later, I look back and can see what wisdom there was in it. The next morning after that, I had heard of artists and creative people talking about them being amused and inspired. And I'll be honest with you, it was something I would have loved to have experienced that. I knew I wanted to do something with my life, but everything was coming from headspace. Everything was coming, every creative attempt to be creative, and whether it was through writing or speaking or anything, was coming from my intellect, and I knew I was missing something. That next morning after that session was the first time I had ever started to work with the music and actually feel inspired. It was amazing, actually. And then another thing happened. Several months later, I attended a talk, and as I walked into the room, here was a speaker, very eloquent, and not speaking from notes. So I had been in Toastmasters a number of years before this, and whilst there was some excellent speakers, they were speaking from memory or notes. They had techniques, and whilst they looked polished, there was nothing authentic. And I walked into this talk and I heard this man speaking, and I thought, that's it. That's what I want to be able to do. Maybe wasn't the best way of going about it, but that I knew what I was seeing in front of me was exactly what I wanted. Here was somebody showing up as they were, and there was no, what you can tell is that energy that I had felt I was having to push. When you're an image trying to be something, there's a lot of energy put into that, whereas when you're showing up naturally, you're not expanding that much energy. And I knew, and there was just so much knowledge, just so much wisdom shared in that talk, but it was coming from a completely authentic space. So yeah, it's just be mindful of showing up and how you show up and the way in which you want to show up. There's a couple of things to consider, is that you're going to, whatever it is you're showing up to in life. Now, you might not be a speaker, you might not want to do videos, you might not be running training courses like Melody Beattie, but it doesn't matter. However you're showing up in life. So if that could be as a parent, as within a different profession, but I watched a documentary on autism the last few days, and my God, are these parents showing up for their kids? So it doesn't matter in what area of your life, whatever way you're showing up, you're going to have a couple of things coming up against you. You're going to meet with sabotage, your own sabotage, and that of others. So Melody Beattie was basically saying her family were sucking the life out of her. Here she was delivering something that was very meaningful and impactful for her personally and her attendees and her family. There was all sorts of carry on going on in the family, and I experienced it personally. I had booked to go to a talk last year, and just before it, my son got sick 20 times. I'd never seen anybody be sick so much, but it wasn't the first time that this kind of thing had happened. So whenever you are going to reach your full potential and show up fully at something in your life, you're going to be up against some of your own sabotage and also that of other people around you. But you can get to a point where you've seen it before and you recognise what it is, and you're going to show up even if you look like you've got sweatpants on that you've peed yourself in. The other thing to consider is that, this perfectionist in us wants to be better than what we necessarily are, or to look better, and it's just not how things work in the real world. There are plenty of people, I'm going past, there are plenty of people that have ideas about how they want to do things, and how but they aren't taking any action to get there, and they never will, because they'll always be perfecting it. And then you get people out there who are trying and doing. And I had the great fortune to listen to a podcast of a lady over lockdown, somebody I've a huge admiration for and respect. Now, most people would switch off and wouldn't watch, because she doesn't look a typical leader, if you like. What we would, not polished, not the finished article. In fact, she's far from it. She shows up and it can be a bit hectic, a bit chaotic, but my God, does she offer value? My God, does she have something to share with the world? And it has been amazing to watch. So I'm becoming much clearer about those I listen to and respect, and getting past those early judgments. And the talk of the man I was saying before, actually me seeing there was some initial judgments that I made that I had to get past before I really got to see clearly there. So if we're not watching and mindful for that, we will miss opportunity. It's really start to listen to the message and what is being said, rather than some of looking for perfection and looking at, necessarily the polished article. Many people will get to that point, but especially if they're starting out. And I've been able to benefit from that greatly, of people starting out and getting past those judgments. So, also I had, during COVID, I wasn't sure what to listen to or who to listen to, because I wasn't convinced about an awful lot, but I also don't view myself as anti-vax either. But I wanted to be informed. There was a man that his work I respect hugely, Peter Bregan, and he's in his 80s now, hugely successful in his work in cases against Big Pharma years ago. And yeah, just massive admiration for the work that he's done. Now, I started to listen to some of his views on COVID, and he wrote a book, and I got a lot of value from that. But some of his message, politics, are coming through quite strongly, and I don't agree with politics. I don't particularly want to get into political discussions. But for me to get the message and to listen to his work, I had to put some of my judgments around how he was expressing the politics to one side. So it's even that, challenge yourself to look past the message, to focus on what really matters. So whether it's someone else showing up and you're inspired by that, or if it's you showing up in your life, whatever it is that you want to do, you're going to be met with various things. You're going to be met with failure or supposed failure. You're going to be met with sabotage. They want to be perfect at something, and then recognising you're not, you're far from it. And you're going to have to look, as I say, past all of that and start to focus on really what's important, to look at the message. So really go for it, show up.